friends, are you ready for chapter 2? I definitely want to know what's going to happen because remember in chapter 1, it seemed like a lot of confusion happened. Things went kaplunk, kaplooey, boom, crack. Yeah, I need to know what's going to happen now. I want to see how our friend Frank is doing. Is he feeling a little bit defeated? Is he feeling determined to keep going? Let's find out. So let's go to page 17. Look at the bottom of your paper in your book. The 1 and the 7, that's a 17. And if you look at the top, remember where we found that red dot? There's the number 2. This is chapter 2. Okay, my friends, put your finger on the big letter A. Are you ready? Here we go. All is quiet in Frank Einstein's laboratory. The lightning storm has passed. Frank is asleep. The town of Midville is silent. The night is now clear. A beam of silver light from the almost full moon shines down through the rusted windows and skylight. The moonlight glints off the SmartBot's toaster head and the exposed SmartBot circuit brain lying on top of the pile of video game controller, stopwatch, electric keyboard, hamburger grill, blender, model airplane engineer, stomach exercisers, aluminum flex duct hose, TV remote, magnets, batteries, locks, old steel file, stereo speakers, shop vac, lamps, computer monitor, bicycle horn, webcam, glass dome, baby buggy wheels, thermometers, fans, car GPS, collection of rock samples, big silver trash can, and broken talking hug me monkey doll. Every bit of stone, metal, wood, and plastic matter remains still as the faintest night breeze through the drafty garage door stirs the crumpled paper ball on Frank's workbench. The ball rolls 1.5 revolutions and hits a coil of copper wire. The copper wire uncoils and brushes against the steel file. The file files across the flint rock sample. The steel striking flint creates a spark. The spark jumps to the center of the Frank-made SmartBot brain. The spark races along the thin computer circuit memory chip pathways. It doubles, triples, quadruples, and forms a network of interconnected sparks, looking an awful lot like a network of interconnected human brain cells. The interconnected web of sparks becomes an idea. The interconnected web becomes a plan. The webcam eye opens. Its shutter blinks and fires a wireless command to the headless robot body. The charge powers on the small LED lights, then speeds into the vacuum cleaner body core. The charge multiplies, splits, and spreads throughout the robot body. One mechanical clamp hand lies still on the workbench. Spark! The clamp opens. Spark! The clamp closes. Spark! The entire clamp hand moves. You guys, look at this picture at the bottom. Do you see all these pieces together? It looks like they're assembling. Is this thing putting itself together? Okay, keep turning. Next page. Look at the bottom. We should be on page 20. Intricate waves of power now surge and fill electrified pathways. The mechanical clamp hand unscrews the back of a video game power pack. The hand gathers the hard plastic shop vac, the webcam, the glass dome. The moon disappears behind a passing cloud. In the pitch-dark laboratory, 2 mechanical hands gather and sort through the pile of junk parts and tools on the workbench. The hands turn screws, wind springs, adjust gears, bolt, hammer, and build. The hands rewire circuits, shape scrap, attach pieces, secure hoses, and finally pull a whole new robot head toward a newly rebuilt robot body. The cloud passes. The beam of moonlight shines down into the laboratory again. And now there is something new in Frank Einstein's workbench. Something that wasn't there earlier. Something that thinks. Something that learns. Something that is alive. What? Did this bunch of metal and screws and things, did it just put itself together while Frank was asleep? What? You know what? I'm just going to continue on to chapter 20 Chapter 3. How's that sound to you? Let's just keep this thing going because I need to know. Look at page 21. At the top, you see the big number 3? Let's just keep going. At 8:34 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Frank's alarm clock goes off. And because this is inventor Frank Einstein's alarm clock, of course it doesn't go off by simply ringing. It goes off by way of a hammer on top of an old alarm clock, smacking a nail that knocks a peg, that frees a 10-speed bicycle gear, that drops a little barbell on the end of a chain, that turns another gear and a wheel and another and another and another in a maze of interlocking gears and wheels covering the entire wall until the last wheel turns a worm gear that spins a metal rod. Did you guys turn the page? Okay. That opens the vertical floor to ceiling blinds, filling the room with bright morning sun. Frank sits up and scratches his head with both hands. He loves staying with Grandpa Al in this cool old factory he's turned into his house, fix-it, repair shop, and now also a laboratory of Frank's very own. The fix-it shop might not be the most successful business in Midville. People seem to throw stuff away instead of fixing it. And Grandpa Al is always more interested in the fixing than the money making. But Grandpa Al's shop is the greatest place in the world to make and test any invention you might dream of. Frank throws on jeans, a t-shirt, and his rumpled, soft, washed 1,000 times lab coat. He slides on shoes, no socks, because that's how he does his best thinking, in comfort. Frank scientifically observes the model train tracks at his feet. He concludes that he's glad he's disconnected his model train shoe delivery system last night. That invention isn't quite working yet. Too many early morning shoe train wrecks. Turn the page. Frank grabs the book on his oversized wooden cable spool bedside table. The smell of pancakes and coffee from the kitchen downstairs hurries him along the wide wooden plank floor hallway under the old Midville Zipper Company sign stamped in concrete letters over the doorway arch. That was hard to say, you guys. Frank hustles past the walls covered with his Grandpa Al's charts and diagrams of the phases of the moon and the constellations. He takes a left down the hall of tectonic plates and the geological timescale. He takes a right past the human skeletal system and the circulatory system. He hops onto the double helix DNA slide, spirals down 2 floors, and pops through the plant cell, animal cell, swinging doors right into the kitchen. "Good morning, Einstein," says Grandpa Al, scooping pancakes out of a frying pan. "Good morning, Einstein," answers Frank, repeating their classic joke that's not really a joke. Grandpa Al serves Frank and himself each a steaming stack of pancakes. He turns on the carbon atom light fixture above the table. It glows with a funny mix of 6 blue proton and 6 red neutron lights in the center nucleus, surrounded by 6 occasionally blinking white electron lights. Frank swallows a delicious mouthful of warm pancake, melted butter, and maple syrup. So, power's back on? Grandpa Al nods. "Yeah, sorry about that. I guess it was my fault. I found the overdue bill notice in the refrigerator this morning. Not sure how it got there, but I paid them some of the money so we can keep the lights on. At least till you finish your project." "Don't worry about that," says Frank, feeling bad about his Grandpa Al's forgetfulness. "I've got some more ideas to win that prize, just like you did when you were a kid with your super electromagnet." Grandpa Al nods and smiles and looks up at the photo of himself with the Midville Science Prize trophy, cup, and his magnet above the kitchen mural diagram of an electromagnetic wave. "I think that really did start me thinking like a scientist." Turn the page. We're on page 26. Frank takes another bite of pancake. "Yeah, because you knew so much." Grandpa Al leans back and gives one of his big easy laughs. "Nope, just the opposite, in fact. I started to know how much I didn't know. Science is about asking questions, not memorizing answers. Failure is just as valuable as success if you figure out what caused the failure." "Well, then my experiment last night was pretty valuable," says Frank. "When we lost power, everything got smashed." "Sorry," says Grandpa Al. "So, what's with the Asimov book? You working on robots? Frank downs the rest of his pancake. I'm working on a robot that can learn on its own. Cells connected in networks, not in lines of programming rules. I figure if robot brains can be built to work like human brains, then robots might be able to learn like humans and get smarter and smarter. Interesting, says Grandpa Al. You're using a biophysical model from human neuroscience. Exactly, because human brain cells are arranged in a network like this. Frank sketches in marker a diagram of interconnected brain cells on the front of Grandpa Al's giant industrial refrigerator. Are you guys looking at this picture? Huh. Anybody think they can draw something like that? I think that's actually pretty cool. Okay, turn the page. But computers make yes or no decisions following rules, more in a long straight line like this. So he changed his picture to be more straight lines, the way computers actually think. So that's kind of robot brain can't learn the way we do. It can only do what it's programmed to do. Grandpa Al nods. Frank continues excitedly. But what if I made the robot brain like this? You guys, it looks like a tree. I see, says Grandpa Al. Then one brain cell connects with lots of other brain cells at the same time, making patterns, making thoughts. Frank connects an intricate pattern of cells on his robot brain diagram. Yes! And then the robot can remember those patterns, and those patterns become thoughts, like a human brain. And then, suddenly, the life-size Dimetrodon model in the corner of the kitchen gives a lizardy roar. A lizardy roar. Okay. Grandpa Al gives Frank a surprised look. Who could be calling at this hour? Roar! Grandpa Al's Dimetrodon phone rings again. Grandpa Al pushes the Dimetrodon's eye. The big sail-shaped backed fin lights up like a video screen and displays Bob and Mary. Oh, says Grandpa Al, it's your mom and dad. Frank answers the prehistoric reptile call. Hello? Hello? Frank, is that you, sweetie? A fuzzy picture of two faces circled by furred orange parka hoods appears on the Dimetrodon screen. Hi, Mom. Yep, it's me. Is everything okay? You and Grandpa taking care of each other? What are you doing? Yeah, says Frank. I was just telling Grandpa about my neural net model for artificial intelligence. I'm trying to get it up and running to win the Midville Science Prize. That's nice. And don't forget to take your vitamins, okay? Here's your father. Frank! Hi, Dad. This is the greatest spot yet for travelallovertheplace.com. Bottom of the world. You know what they call it? Sure, says Frank. Antarctica. It's called Antarctica, son. The South Pole. Glaciers. Skiing. Snowshoeing. Penguins. Seals. Great, says Frank. You should also check out the ozone hole studies. This is the time of year the hole widens. Whales also, I think. Okay, we gotta run. We'll call you again in a couple of days. Check your blog for more. Sure, says Frank. Okay, bye, love you. The Dimetrodon phone goes blank. Frank looks at Grandpa Al. Are you sure Dad is your kid? Grandpa Al laughs. Yeah, he never did like science much, but he sure does love to travel. And so does your mom. And that allows us to do some of our experiments. And speaking of experiments, what happened to the toaster? Uh-oh, that was Grandpa Al speaking, you guys. And speaking of experiments, what happened to the toaster? Grandpa Al asked. I can't find it anywhere. Oh, right. Sorry. I was using some of the parts for my robot. I'll go get it. In most places in the universe, this is where the adult would give a long lecture about not taking things apart, remembering to put things back the way you found them, the dangers of electricity, and maybe it would be better if you just didn't touch anything ever. But this adult is Grandpa Al Einstein. He says, "Great!" Frank heads into his lab and flips on the lights. He searches through the mess of parts and pieces on the workbench and pictures rebuilding his self-educating robot brain. Frank talks to himself as he starts to collect all the toaster, I've got to turn the page, parts. I could use more brain cells and fewer connections, he says, holding out one hand as if it were a scale. Or, I could use fewer brain cells, he says, holding out the other hand. And more connections. He looks over the pile of junk, palms still extended. Thermostat, thermostat. Where are you, thermostat? He hears a faint mechanical whirring noise. Something drops into his right palm. Thermostat, says an electronic voice. Oh, there it is, says Frank. Great, thanks. Frank cradles the toaster parts in one arm and heads back to the kitchen, still thinking out loud. But now, how am I going to get the power, the spark, you are welcome, says the electronic voice. Frank freezes, suddenly realizing he is not alone. He turns back to look at his workbench and sees that he isn't talking to someone else. He is talking to something else. Frank drops all the toaster pieces with a clink, clank, clink, clink, clatter. You, says Frank, understanding in a second what has happened. You are alive! You guys! The thing he was trying to invent invented itself! And Frank is stunned. Can you imagine? Can you imagine standing there and seeing like a bunch of bolts and a vacuum cleaner and all kinds of parts to put itself together? Can you imagine that? What could he be thinking right now? Oh no. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's working! It worked! My invention has worked! So, let's find out in the next chapter how he does. Next time. Bye.